What's going on? Car.
We have a hot chocolate bar in the kitchen.
I saw that. Yeah. So anybody that wants some, there's a very cool hot chocolate bar in the kitchen. Yeah. Alrighty. There we go. Okay, Hope, come on down, Old Republic.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Nice to be here. Where is everybody?
They'll be here. You know, they're on record tonight. We're on bold time.
On bold time. Oh,
We're on
okay.
bold time.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm always happy to be here. We have got some exciting news, very exciting news. But first of all, does everybody remember when I was here in December? We did the 12 Days of Christmas.
Yes.
I had some of you come up and sing and entertain us. We're doing something different today. We're going to be very quick, I promise.
Okay.
We're going to drop it down a notch, but just follow my lead, okay? I promise you this is going somewhere. So I want you all to strike a pose like you're about to meditate. Everybody go like this. Close your eyes and follow my lead. Just follow what I say. Old Republic. Lower pricing.
Lower pricing.
Old Republic.
Old Republic.
Lower pricing.
Lower pricing.
Old Republic.
Old Republic.
Lower pricing.
Lower pricing.
Everybody open your eyes. Okay, I feel great. So, you've heard the big news. As of Friday, effective March 1st, we are lowering our prices, which is huge. I've given you a copy of the price sheet. Unfortunately, our brochures did not arrive on time, so I apologize.
Okay.
Those will be in the office first thing next week. So, disregard the pricing back here. This is the new pricing you want to concentrate on. Just so you know, the standard has dropped by $75. The ultimate has dropped by $95, which is huge. We've also added an essential plan, which covers the basics. We've never had that before. We've added condo pricing. Again, we've never had that before. And a couple key features, we've added rekey, up to 6 locks, including deadbolts. We've also added 2 pre-season tune-ups, which is huge. One in the spring, one in the fall. So this is big news for us. We're really excited. We did send out an email blast, and as I said, this will be effective on Friday. So if any of you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me. I would love to work with you. But I also want to mention one other thing. If you're not aware, we have a new construction plan. Does anybody in here work on new construction primarily? Okay, good. This is different because what we do is we offer you 4 years for the low price of $580. So you can choose years 1 through 4, but if the builder already offers coverage, you would select years 2 through 5, and that does cover systems and appliances. You cannot beat that. Again, that's 4 years for $580. So present this to your clients. This is a great gift you might want to even purchase for them. A lot of agents will do that if it's reasonably priced. But again, think about doing that. And lastly, I want to ask, who has got a closing coming up? Today or next month? Raise your hands high. Here is how I can help you. I have got a trade call coupon, which will eliminate either $75 or $100 from the first time they call in their claim. All you have to do is give this to your client. They turn it over to the technician. He will fill it out and submit it to our company. But this will waive the first trade call fee. So if anybody wants one, let me know. I'll be in the back of the room at the end of the meeting. All I ask is give me your business card. And yes, you have to use this on Old Republic. I've actually somebody stopped me last week and said, "Can I use this for any home warranty company?" I said, "Oh no, I'm sorry." No, only Old Republic. Okay. So anyway, thank you for your time. I always appreciate your business. If you've never used this, now is the perfect time to join Old Republic. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for lunch.
You're welcome.
Charlie, come on over.
Good morning, Charlie Pollard. I'm a closing attorney with McManamy McLeod Heller, NMH. Thank you to everyone that I've done closings with in the past, and if you haven't had a chance to work with us, please give us a chance sometime this year. We really appreciate it. Okay, I haven't talked about iBuyers in a while, so I know everybody's interested. It's a new thing, so we're obviously as interested in this whole phenomenon as you guys are. So a couple things that we've learned. Now there's 4 out there right now in Atlanta, as far as I know. There's Zillow, there's Knock, there's OfferPad, and there's Opendoor. So there's a couple that I've seen and I'm comfortable in. I think I know how they work. Zillow is pretty cut and dry. You know, if you're in, it seems like it's the northern arc of town where they're interested now. And if people can click on a button and get an offer and go through the process, and it's really just as simple as, you know, Zillow or whoever is behind them, they're buying the property, okay? And it's, people sell it, they're done, that's it. And then Zillow's turning around and selling after they do a rehab. That's what I can gather about that. So it's kind of simple in that front. They do honor, if you've got a listing agreement with someone that's selling their house and they end up selling to Zillow, they will pay your commission. So always important to get that listing agreement signed, because then you're gonna get your commission if the property gets sold, even if it goes through this, if you're within your period. So obviously, that's obviously always an important thing, but especially with this new actor in town. Now, knock is a little different, and it's not as simple as far as I can extrapolate from what I've seen. Has anybody worked with a knock transaction on either side? Okay, so this is what I've gathered. So their angle is this. Someone wants to, they've got a house, obviously, they own a home. They want to go find their dream home. You know, it's probably a step up. But for whatever reason, they don't want to have any temporary housing, they don't want to have a gap, they don't have a risk of any sort of apartment or anything like that. So what knock offers is that they'll say, okay, you go find your dream house, and we will put a cash offer on it. Now, we get to list your house, we get to sell your house, so we're gonna get the commission there. But you can find that house, we'll put a cash offer on it, and then we'll buy it, and you can move in before you've sold your other house, and they'll have a temporary occupancy or some sort of lease. I don't know the details on that, but they allow people to move into that house while knock, or whoever the corporate entity actually owns that property. Now, as soon as that closes, what they'll do is they'll try to sell that house, their old house, and when that one sells, they'll apply that equity, and then that person buys the house from knock, okay? It's already been purchased, that they're already living in. A lot of moving parts, and obviously it's something that has been going on. They started in Texas, all these things sort of start in Phoenix, start in Texas, start in Vegas, and then they come to Atlanta, and it's sort of in the progression of all these iBuyers as far as we can tell. You know, all the Inman articles, I'd advise you, if you don't have a subscription to that, I'm looking at it every day just to see what's going on new, because things are always changing, and Inman is the best source of information. It's where I learned a lot of this. But there must be a segment out there that this is speaking to. It seems complicated to me, but they're out there doing business. So that's all I know about that, and I figured, you know, as I've learned these things, it's a good thing for you guys to know what's out there, because people are going to be asking you about it. So that's what I know about those two.
Cool.
And so I'm going to get Doug.
Troy, I have a clarifying question in my
Yeah.
view. The
Yeah,
answer might be
sure.
very important to everyone.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as the value of the price they're offering sellers? Are they offering the range of 99%, 99%, 95%?
I really don't, you know, when it comes to knock, I have no idea. You know, I haven't really been able to, I'm just sort of familiar with this process, which seems like it's got a lot of moving parts. I think that one of the values there is that they're telling these people they're gonna make a cash offer, they're gonna be competitive on some property that they may not get otherwise, because it's gonna be a quick cash closing. So I'm not sure about how obviously you're paying for this convenience. I mean, the consumer's paying for this. I mean, it's gonna be more expensive on all these transactions than if they just did it the way that we all know how to do it, the old-fashioned way. So they're clearly paying for this, you know, luxury of all these things happening. So the bank account's gonna be lighter with getting involved in these things, that's for sure. You're paying for the convenience. Now, on the Zillow, what I think that they do is that and this is probably true for the other offer pattern that we already just don't know, is that, you know, they'll make an offer, but then someone physically will come out. I'm pretty sure this is how Zillow does it, I'm not sure about the other ones. And then they start marking up and there's a concession. So there's a concession for the paint, the rug, this, that, and the other. And then, you know, it's sort of like you know, it takes the bottom line down a good bit. I don't know what the percentage is.
They all charge 6%.
Yeah.
Two already.
Yeah. And there's probably a deeper, there's probably some
And then they
deeper.
have like a window of how much they can take off based
Right.
on how much they can find
Right.
once
Right.
they
So 6%, and then they can
Plus.
plus.
So, I mean, it's, again, your folks are paying for it. So that's your initial response when people bring this stuff to you, like, why shouldn't I do that? One thing is that, well, you know, you gotta look, it's out there. And if you've got a listing and someone can hit that button and see what the number is, I guess, you know, you're gonna pay for it. You know, the bottom line is you're gonna get less money, for it. So that's your initial reaction can be that. you know, but, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I had a very analytical client do a side-by-side analysis, cause he had 4 kids under 3, and so it would have been very convenient for him to sell to Zillow. And when he did the side-by-side comparison, it was a huge discrepancy between what he was actually gonna be getting versus what I told him we could sell for, etc. And to people who are kind of newer in the business, I think it's important to also get to have a really good lender that you work with that can help you with this exact same scenario, because a lot of people who are selling and then buying have equity, and they can use a bridge loan, which is exactly the same thing, but cheaper. So, like, new agents really need to become experts, realtor experts in loans as well, so they can present a side-by-side comparison to help people make wise choices with their money.
And I really do think you need to read up on these things. Go to, and like I said, Inman seems to be the hottest. I mean, of course, it's always got the best news, and they're pretty up to date on all these things. And as things happen, they update their stories, and they have all the info, because every passing day you're going to hear more. Your clients are going to be asking about it, so you need to know about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
So you know how we're always very grateful, and this office is all about the people that are in the office, and how we love one another and we take care of one another. So we want to give a huge shout out to Miss Lexi, because her birthday is coming. We got a big old birthday cake for you. So, do you want to start us off with a happy birthday?
Yes,
ready? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to Miss Alexis here. Okay, on the count of 3, you guys join me. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lexi. Happy birthday to you. Wait, Katie, where are you? Where's Katie Staples?
Right there.
First dibs, cookies, come on.
What'd you say?
You go first dibs. We're gonna first dibs. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna just start the cookie cake lab with you, baby. I already got love. Kayla.
That is love. That's all I know, we're good friends.
Oh my
Oh my gosh, that's my heart.
Right, come on, you win.
So we're gonna cut this up. It'll be in the kitchen after team meeting is over.
I'll be on the front.
If there's any left.
If there's any left, yes. You got it?
I'll see.
Okay, upcoming classes. Magical Mornings every morning, 8:45. Ignite training continues Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Today at 1 o'clock, our second command lab with Alexis Warner. Woohoo! How many of you have been playing in command since class last week? So Alexis is back to teach us some new, and also go back and review some things that aren't quite working properly. But that's okay, because it's a new system. Yes? Okay. Meet the Market Center tonight at 5:30. If you know of anybody that's interested in moving to our Market Center, or new in the business, or just getting their license, have them come tonight at 5:30. Bold continues on Thursday. On Thursday at 12 o'clock, there's a Keller Mortgage conference call. I'm going to talk a little bit about Keller Mortgage. You all know it's available, and it's here, right? It's a virtual mortgage platform provided through Keller Williams. No? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Agents and Growth Mastery with Kelly Chansey on Monday from 12 to 1:30 continues. And PC Group Coaching on Tuesday. Wednesday of next week, again at 1 o'clock, KW Command. And our ever popular, ever fabulous co-chair of our tech committee, Andrew Wynn, will be coming to teach.
Insights, how to use that, how it benefits your business, as well as how to use the opportunity tool, which basically sets up your pipeline. You're able to set the percentages so that as you're putting in, leads for your pipeline, you can come up statistically on how likely you'll close the deal, as well as how much you'll earn from that.
So put that
2
on
p.m.
your, put that on your
So I'll be
calendar.
teaching that next week if anyone wants to come in and learn.
Yes, we all do, yes. He texted me last night and he said, I've been working on this all day, and he had kind of a really funny emoji, so I thought he was being sarcastic, and I sent I sent the emoji back with his nose growing. I said, are you being sarcastic? And he said, actually, I worked on it all day today. And I was like, okay, next week, we got it, alrighty. Bold again next Thursday, and then Tuesday, the 12th, from 12:30 to 2, how to write and present an offer for our agents and launch. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Keller Mortgage. If you don't know about it, last week, Kayla sent out a link to several items that we talked about in Command. One of them is Keller Mortgage, so I would highly recommend you all follow that link, do the 15-minute review and little baby quiz. It will automatically update onto your Keller app. It will take the place of open houses, and you're able then to access Keller Mortgage from your app, okay? 0 origination fees, 0 lending fees, plus $1,000 at closing if they buy a property more than $150,000, okay? So this would be a very interesting, February 28th at 11 o'clock. The access code is at the bottom. We will send this out today, okay? Okay, and we have another listing panel, because I'm still hearing from agents, I've got listings and they're not selling. I've got listings and they're not selling. So again, from our stat from last quarter, 50% of properties have to have a price reduction. We're gonna continue to talk about this until we start pricing these houses to sell. So I'm gonna ask Kelly to come up, and I'm gonna ask Tara, Alex, and Cynthia to join her. Go there. Alright, so we're just going to do a little introduction. They know the drill, they know what they're talking about. I'll kind of facilitate. If you have questions, please raise your hand. This is interactive. We do want to get as much information out there because they do carry a lot of listings. So your name, how long you've been with the Market Center, and the business that you do.
My name's Kelly Marsh. I've been in real estate since 2000, and I don't remember how long I've been here, but what was the other question? How much business? So last year we did 34 million. The last 3 years we've averaged between 40 and 34 million.
Cool. I'm Tara Winsley. I've been in the business 7.5 years now. This is my only office. I'm very proud to say that. I love this office. If you guys don't love this office, come see me. And my business fluctuated last year, so I was right around 9 million. I'm typically around 11. My goal is much higher than that this year.
What is your goal this year?
My goal is 16 million this year.
Okay.
My name is Cynthia Deckel. I've also been in the office 7.5 years, the only office I've been in. Last year I did about 14 million. A little over half of those were listings.
What's your goal for this year, Cynthia?
48 transactions. I'd have to do the math on that.
Okay. Alex?
My name is Alex Worrell. I've been in this office. Actually, I came here in like 2013 and I left and went to a different office, Muffling Associates, for about 3 years, and now I'm back here. I've been here for about a year now. So last year I did like just a touch under 8 million. Last 4 years I've really been kind of right at that point, around 30 transactions. And most, like probably 50-50 listings versus buyers most years. So yeah, goal is 14 million this year, so this is like my step up year.
Okay, so what are we seeing in the market when it comes to pricing? We're gonna kind of just go down a couple of thoughts, listings. So how are your sellers reacting if you have to ask them to not price it as quite as high as they thought they were going to get? And how do you convince them to do that?
It's really, for us, it hasn't changed because
Okay.
we've always done it the same way.
Okay.
when we take a listing, we prep them for a price reduction right from the beginning. And we always tell them that we're gonna do our best to get the price right and to list it at the highest price to get them an offer. And if we don't get it within 8 days or 8 showings, then we prep them that they need to lower the price. And we usually tell them what that price reduction needs to be at the time of the listing presentation, so they're not shocked in a week when we try to get them to lower the price, if that happens.
How often does it happen?
Well, when I looked at the stats, actually 2017, 20% of the time, we had to reduce the price. And this area, it was about 35% for everybody else. Last year, it went up. We're at 34% when we had to lower the price, and everybody else was like 44, 45%.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I prep my sellers, set their expectations up front. I've really learned that a lot recently with all the changes going on about setting the expectation that we may, if you're gonna, my issue has been lately, you know, you go on the listing appointment, right? And they may not wanna list for a month. And that is where my issue has been. It's the gap. It's like, well, you know, I can't tell you where the market's gonna be in a month. And if I didn't set that expectation and we waited a month, oh boy, we had some problems. So I've made a business decision to make that change in my business. I typically have this expectation talk about the pricing. I've always done it. I haven't changed my strategy on that, and that's where I've been very efficient. It's when I get them listed has been my area of development right now.
Okay.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Cynthia.
You know, I don't get a lot of pushback on the pricing. You know, I mostly live in a neighborhood where it's very obvious what the price should be. It doesn't, you know, there's a lot of comps, let's say, that someone would know already probably. What I'm really seeing is more condition issues versus, you know, getting people to do the work they need to do before they list.
Me too.
And I will literally, for us, if it's not done, if the work isn't done, the house will not sell at any price. So, and if it is in good condition and looks updated, it'll still sell at top dollar. So
And that's a good question for the newer folks is the conditions. So what are the conditions? Do you know what that means when there's a condition? You know what I mean? Like, they're not doing this and this is wrong with the house. So what are you gonna attach? What price are you gonna attach? And that's what you have to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, right.
I mean, that becomes questionable, right? I mean,
I'm really, it was a lesson I learned last year, to be honest with you. I worked for a couple of good friends, and my own mistake was very gentle with them. I felt responsible for their funds, and the house sat and sat and sat, and I hold a lot of guilt over that. Had I just been more firm, the second, I'm not even kidding you, they eventually painted the walls and did the white cabinets. Literally 2 days later, their house went under contract. So I feel like that's my lesson. I need to be more firm with people. It is important, you know, for us at least. It's very important. And there are examples to show them. So that's what I'm going to do going forward. Look, this house sat forever. They painted the walls, and next day, full price off. You know.
I mean, as y'all know, every house is conditional, you know, it's like every circumstance is different. A lot of what we take is expired before sale by owner, so we're having to like go out there and aggressively compete, and you know, a lot of times, you know, we're having the qualification conversation, and we're asking them, you know, what do you want to price it at? And we trust that you are going to accept our advice and actually price it where it's going to sell, right? So we try to prep them as much as we can with that pre-qual script before we actually meet with them. And a lot of times, you know, it comes down to whether we even choose to go on that appointment. Because, you know, a lot of times people are just unrealistic, and you're like, I'd love to help you, but at the end of the day, if you're $50,000 over, then what are we really gonna accomplish here? But, you know, we have to be competitive, so we're still gonna go in most cases. So one of the things I say to everybody in every presentation is, look, just between you and I'm not a genie. I can't tell you exactly what your home is going to sell for, right? So so that said, I will come to you after 2 to 3 weeks, you know, after we've gotten the feedback, we've shown it, and we're not getting the response we want, and I will talk with you about reducing the price. So just to set that expectation up front, that's what's gonna happen if we don't sell it right away and we don't get what we wanna get out of this. And then a lot of it has to do with, I mean, hey, if someone says, hey, we got 6 months to sell it, we're in no rush and we wanna list it, I'm okay with going a little higher, you know, and try and get that extra dollar for them. I am, honestly, I'm not gonna turn it down a listing just because, you know, they wanna try it initially a little bit higher. But once again, we're talking to them about, you know, we will eventually come to say, hey, you need to drop the price. So, you know, everybody does it a different way, but that's the way we do it.
Okay, talk about condition a little bit. So Kelly, you were in business in 2008. And so we went through those rough years, and then all of a sudden 2012, 2013 started turning into a seller's market. And I've said this before, I noticed that when I saw pictures online of a room is every different color, there's wallpaper all over the houses, because in a buyer's market in 2008, you had to ask them to do everything to the house, and I need you to reduce the price on the property. So that's what I'm hearing you say. I'm hearing you say that condition has to be like back in a buyer's market, because buyers want turnkey. That's different than the past couple of years where you could sell anything.
Well,
right?
and that's what I learned during that time period, because when 2007 and 8 hit, is I learned that I was lucky part of the time on selling houses, that I may not have been that great of an agent, but I was just lucky. And then I could really tell if I was good or not by the ones that sold. So what I learned was when the market went down is that we had to really fine tune things and have a set of tools to give our sellers so the house would fit. So we have a whole system that we follow all the time. So since that time, I don't remember what year it started, we have a stager that we send to every single house unless it's a tear down or a fixer-upper. And we have a stager that goes to the house with the client, whether it's a good market or a bad market. Because if you look at the stats, good houses sell in a bad market and a good market the same amount of days. So we do that, and if they don't, we tell them, we prep them for it. We expect you to do everything that she recommends, and if you don't, we may not take your listing. And we might still take the listing, but we tell them that. Depends on the situation. And then sometimes depends on, the stager may tell them to do something kind of wackadoodle, and so we may say, okay, you don't have to do that. But that really, if you put that tool in your toolbox and do it just a standard on every listing, your life will be so much easier.
What do you, go ahead, Terry.
I saw him raise his hand.
Go ahead,
so
Andrew,
if
go.
you wanna
Yep.
take questions.
I was just gonna ask, because my perception always was before that price cures all. Do you guys feel like now that's not so much true, and it really is, you just have to do the work?
I don't want to answer all the questions, I want to give them.
That's been my experience, honestly. Recently.
Yeah, recently. I wanted to say something that Kelly said, and I thought about it a little bit differently, but I think we're thinking the same thing. When I was thinking about talking to y'all this morning, the way that the market has changed is you have to be masterful in how you go about doing business in your listing presentation, in your scripts to your clients, because the days of just kind of, picking up all these listings, right, and doing all this business, whether you are good or whether you are so-so, I think they're done. I think that's not the current market today. And I would learn my scripts. I would know what I was saying in my listing presentation all the time and really up your game, particularly with what y'all were talking about earlier with the open doors and the Zillows and all that stuff. Because you need to know what to say to that, and if you don't, you're gonna lose.
That's right,
How many sellers are coming at you with that you've had to change and learn new objection handlers?
I just had that this morning.
Okay.
So I'm in the process of dealing with that, and so I've done my education. I still need more, but I've reached out to some people, and I need to know why my seller still needs to choose me and not Zillow. And it may not be that someone wants to net the most money. They may not want to have to take their dogs out. They may not have to wake up their baby. You know what I mean? So you got,
It's changing.
Yeah, so you gotta deal with that. Maybe they're okay with the 10,000 loss or whatever.
I do think it's more dramatic though. I mean,
What do you mean, the
the
Zillows and
price
stuff?
difference.
Oh, yeah.
I really feel like, from what I understand, that they're offering way below market value.
Oh, is it?
That I
Okay.
thought I had one client
Okay.
where, and they did choose to hire me,
Did
but
it? Okay.
the offer from Zillow was crazy low. I don't know.
Like 30,
Rachel,
40,000 one?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's ridiculous.
I don't know, yeah. So,
But Zillow they won't do it on every single house. The house is over, it was built before 1960 or 70 something, someone knows the year. They won't take it, and they won't take it if it's over a certain price range. So for us,
Oh, interesting.
because
Okay.
we sell in town, we sell mostly Area 51 and around this area, is our houses are either really old, or they may be over that price point
I
that
think it's
they're willing to
500.
take.
I think
Is it
it's a little over
500?
500.
That sounds about right. So if you're working outside the perimeter, you're gonna have more competition with them, but if you're working inside the city, it's not as bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Alex, have you had any experience
No, I
with?
agree with what Kelly's saying.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm primarily 250, 350, and they're pretty competitive offers.
Yeah, they are.
They're-
Zillow. They're competitive. They're not
So,
too low at all.
I mean, obviously, it's just a numbers thing, right? But again, you know, it's like, what is their motivation? Do they wanna move fast? Is it convenience, or do they really wanna net higher dollar? And I can't choose for them, so I think the benefit is just not being attached, right? It's like, hey, the less attached I am, the more I can move on to the next person who really needs my service and wants it.
That's
That's
a really
true.
good point
Yeah,
that you
it
just
is.
made. I think y'all need to really listen, because the problem that most people have as agents is you're high I, or you know, get very emotionally attached. And that's the death of you, because the minute you get emotionally attached, you're attached to the outcome, and then you're gonna be miserable in this business, you know?
it's hard. It's hard to detach yourself.
Would you agree
That's a very
the
good
more
point.
leads and opportunities you have in your pipeline, the less attached
That's
you
the
are?
other good
totally.
point.
Right?
Sure,
If you have
always.
5 listing leads that
Yeah.
you're blocking up and one falls out, you're like, okay, move on, right? But if you have one and you're counting on that one, it's more for the newer agents. I mean, then you're gonna be feeling kind of depressed,
For
right?
everybody,
And I'm
yeah.
gonna push back on you. I don't think that's just for the newer agents. I think that's
That's
for
true.
everybody.
All right, for
Yeah.
everybody.
I think it's for
Yeah,
everybody.
I didn't even say that, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's, yeah, lead generation cures all, right?
Yeah, lead generation does cure all. Steph?
Have any of you had any experience with these companies that will come in and make improvements and do the work and take payment at time of closing? And if so, which companies?
Punch List is one, cause they were in last
Yes.
week with,
I'm doing my first transaction with Punch List right now.
right. I think that's very viable,
I do too.
very
I love it.
viable.
I
And
love the
so
idea of it.
Steph, make sure you let us follow you on that to see
Okay.
how the work is done.
Yeah.
And so, Punch List is a company that
NPI.
yes, has associated with, and so they'll come in and actually do the work, and then they will get their money at closing. So that's a great tool to give your sellers if they don't have the money, if they don't wanna put that money up front, then at closing, they will be paid.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And just,
Yeah.
as a plug for NPI, they were great. They had offered this, or still offering for the rest of February, to come and do a pre-listing inspection for free and have Punch List give estimates on work. And they were there within, 2 days. They were professional. It was a full-on inspection, and, I have the report in my inbox today, so.
And I
Punch
also
List
think that-
follows up with estimates.
Yes.
So that even if you don't do the work, you can show a buyer that we've done this inspection, here's what this is going to cost, this is the company that we inspected with, so they're very professional.
I'd be using that as a marketing tool, because I'm seeing other companies, and I won't mention their names. Well, so, anyway, won't go there. And they're actually, they're doing a huge promotion that they have the funds to take your seller's house and do the work and then get paid at closing.
Right.
I'm seeing that all over the place right now.
Yeah.
I've seen 2 other advertisements, just email blasts, so I'm curious if you guys
Yes, I've seen
use
it.
any of those.
How
Alex?
do they profit on that? I mean, where's the margin? I mean, what, do they tell you up front, like, this is how much we're gonna take from the closing? Is it an extra 5,000? I mean, what do they?
No, it's the actual estimate for the work that's performed.
So they build their profit into the cost up
Right.
front. Okay.
Now, that inspection is typically $250 upfront. So but they were giving us, the Peachtree Road office, a promotional thing for this month. So I didn't pay my salary.
One ID.
Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there like an official contract, like how does it contractually bind to the, like, are they, cause I was texting with some other agents about the same program, like, they put a lien on the property for the $10,000 of the work?
That's what they said they would, cause they
Yes,
were
I haven't
closed.
gotten to the contract part of that because I'm just getting their estimate. Actually, it's probably in my inbox right now. So I haven't seen that part of it. But I'll report back.
So it almost guarantees that you're selling it yourself.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, unless they wanna leave on the house.
Yeah, we went
they
live
have.
yesterday, we had 5 showings, and I have one person who's an unrepresented buyer. The only thing that's not new in this house is the roof. And we're listed at 280, and she texted me, I wanna make an offer for 265 because the roof is not new. And I'm like, that's crazy, here's the estimate for the roof. We can either, we can work it out, either our sellers will replace it, or here's the concession you can make in lieu of them replacing the roof. So it's just numbers in your hand, in your pocket.
It's another
right
tool.
then, which
It
is
is
awesome.
Another tool. Another tool.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, with NPI, it's a mechanics lien if it comes to that, that's what they put on the property. But call Andrew Wood, I've got his number, I've only got one of his cards, so you can take a picture of it, or I can text it to you. But if you have any questions, call him.
That is a great marketing piece. Jill, so we're at family reunion. Sorry, I know you're chewing. Just like at a restaurant. How's your meal? So when we were at family reunion at the Region Awards, you and I were talking about, was it a client that you had that was looking at Open Door, Knock?
They use Knock.
They use Knock. So can you give us a little bit of that scenario, because Jill has some intimate knowledge about the iPhone.
It was really interesting. So I have a listing, and this couple had come in, and they wanted to buy, my listing, and I'm like, great, I can list your house. And they're like, there's no way that we can show our house. We have they rescue old dogs. So we have 5 elderly dogs, the house is a mess, we can't imagine putting them up, blah, 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 blah. So they went to Knock, and Knock, actually, we're under contract on my listing through Knock, which drives me crazy. And so what Knock will do is Knock will buy my listing, allow them to move into my listing. My people get their money and they move off. These people move into their new house, and then Knock sells their house for them while they rent from Knock. Knock will also put a fence around the property of their new house that they're renting, and they add that to the mortgage. So I mean, it's like, I couldn't do that for them, So anyway, so it's working out so far, so good.
You have to be careful with Knock. I've had one client who was my buyer, but didn't want to list with me because her home was not in good condition. She had already signed an agreement with Knock to sell her home. They came back, delayed closing, so she took funds from her retirement fund to buy her new house and move out. They came back a second time and delayed. They came back a third time with a different price and said, we can't buy your house, but oh, by the way, here's an offer on your house. And it was a purchase and sale agreement they emailed to her with a different listing agent on it. So their price is not solid. They will come back and say, because these repairs need to be done, we can only offer you this much. And their contract has holes all in it. Your seller is not protected whatsoever.
I think they're getting full representation. I've shown a lot of open
Very
door
poor.
Knock properties that are just like not presented.
Right, you wouldn't want.
Yeah.
And they're not an agent working on the other end. So they're not proactively saying, hey, what can we do to make this deal work?
Yeah.
They're just,
No, they're just a buyer.
And they're not gonna do a great job because they're not thinking about you as a referral,
Yeah.
and you wanting to help them in the future, right? So you wanna have a great relationship.
So she sent the purchase and sale agreement to me and said, do I have to work with this agent to sell my house? And I said, absolutely not. This person, do you even know who they are? They put another agent friend of theirs on as the listing agent, listed it on FMLS. I mean, it was a nightmare, and I said, no, I can list it for you, and I turned around and called the agent and said, you are a direct violation of everything. You haven't done anything. No, you are. How can you do this?
Back it up, go.
The listing down today. They did, I listed it, I reached out to the buyer's agent, and we salvaged it, and that buyer and buyer's agent ended up on a new transaction with Maywow. But all this took place behind the scenes. They did not inform her of anything. They just, yeah, it was a nightmare.
So before we accepted the offer from Knock, I actually searched to see if this particular agent through Knock had done other business. She sold like 8 properties, you know, as the buyer's agent over the last 6 months, I could think was what I searched for. One was a Keller Williams agent, so I actually picked up the phone and called that Keller Williams agent and said, hey, you know, so-and-so Knock is putting an offer on my house. How was what was the, you know, how'd it go? And she said, you know what? They came in and bought mine. She said it went flawlessly. She said the only issue we had is that she says, I'm in a neighborhood with an HOA that has a rent restriction. So these new buyers of her listing were going to be renting, and so she said that was the only, but we don't have that in Berkeley. This is in Berkeley Lake. So yeah, I mean, they're competition. I mean, we need to all realize, I showed 3 houses the other day and they were open door houses. They've been sitting there for a while because they're usually not the greatest of condition.
Right.
But it's true competition for us, so we've got to figure out how to get through that.
Navigate it. Biggie, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, she said the same thing. I'm seeing a lot of those houses that have been purchased by Knock and Open Doors just sitting.
Well, they
about, like,
price them
a lot of
high.
days on market.
Yeah, and then each week they drop it $1,000.
Yeah.
That's what they do. It's terrible.
Yeah, but
And
I
you
was
put
just
tax
looking where they're
jobs
getting so
on it.
close
They're not
to, they're getting close to their sales price is getting close to what their purchase price was. You know, when I look at the tax records on them.
Right. So let's talk about pricing.
Yeah.
So when you're going into your clients, are you seeing a shift in prices?
Oh, hey.
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing longer days on market, which means that people are priced to buy.
Okay. So how do you combat that when you're going in to talk to a seller when they say, hey, my neighbor just sold at this 3 months ago because it was a hot property and a hot commodity and they're not in the same condition? And you know it needs to be lower. So what are the scripts that you use to make them understand, hey, let's get it sold and not have it sit on the market for a while?
I bring evidence. I will print out, if a home did sell at seemingly a high price recently, I'll print out all the pictures so they can see it was completely renovated, that's not the same product. You know, just try to bring back up support.
Okay. So evidence.
One of the things we do is we take them through the comps at the listing presentation, and we don't give them a number, we make them give us a number.
Yeah.
Always. What they think it should sell for. You gotta have in your mind where you think it should be when you go in there, hopefully. And then you've gotta know those houses in that market really, really well, and hopefully you've been in most of them. You know, so if you haven't gone and done your homework ahead of time and looked at everything in that area, you won't be able to speak intelligently to the client about why that house is, that 1 bedroom was really small, or that picture looks really great, but there's a cliff off the backyard. So if you know those physical things about going in the house because the agent did a great job as a photographer with the pictures, then you can't speak intelligently about what the difference is. And really, honestly, the best thing to do is if they can't agree with you is throw them in your car and go and show them the houses.
Yeah.
Show them the competition. And if you do that correctly, and I always prep them and say, you're gonna come to the same decision I'm gonna come to if you go look at the houses that we've looked at. You don't see all the houses we see. And you gotta guide them through, and you gotta explain to them that they can't be emotional and be, which is hard for them, attached to their own house, that they need to look at it through a buyer's eyes. And you've gotta guide them and say, this is what the buyer's looking for, even though you love this one feature about your house. Most buyers want the white cabinets, you know what I'm saying? So that gets you more value than the stained cabinets, even if the stained cabinets are custom and the white cabinets are probably lower quality. Most buyers, depending on the price range, are going for the glitz and the glamour.
One of the things that I'm doing that's a little bit different is I'm starting to look at pendings more than solds. So the solds are showing you what's in the past, right, which could get us into danger when we look at what's actually sold, because it may be 3 months out, like I think Dory mentioned. So if you're looking at the pendings, you can get an idea of what's going on right now. And if you have to, call the agent and find out a little bit more about the houses that just went pending.
Yeah, sometimes they will tell you.
Yeah.
What they're under or under contract for. Yeah.
You know, and then another thing, we talked a little bit about this before, is look at the active listings. Okay, they haven't sold yet. However, you need to look to see how many price reductions they've had.
Right.
Because they didn't start out at the right price. If they did, they would be pending. So you really need to look at what is actually on the market active, so you can show your clients when they say, well, that house was listed at this, not anymore. It's been reduced 3 times to this and it's still sitting. How do you compare your house to that house? You know, it's like we talk about doctor with bad news. Sometimes they're in bad news. You do want to get these houses sold. That's your job. Your job is to sell the house.
Right.
Are you getting pushback on price?
I think people always think their house is the best thing in the world. So everybody thinks their house is worth more than it is, and that's always been that way.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Okay. So when you look at the seller's market of the past couple of years, where they'd say, I want, you know, Kelly, you go in and you always tell them to tell you the price, you know, and if it's a little bit more of outrageous of where you would want it to sell, but it's a seller's market, would you say okay, or would you still ask them to bring it to your number? Seller's market, so many buyers, not enough inventory.
We do that on a case-by-case basis, but we really don't take overpriced listings, and we tell them that from the beginning.
Okay.
That if they're too far off, I mean, because we spend money on marketing, which I know a lot of agents don't spend any, but we actually spend money on marketing. So it's a loss if we don't sell the house financially. If you look at your P&L, hopefully you do one.
That's another class.
So, it depends on the situation, you know, but if you can get them out there and you can really educate them and get them where they should be, then, am I answering the question? Yeah.
Okay. How do you get them out of emotion and into logic when you're talking about pricing?
You gotta ask a lot of questions. Ask more questions, and when you ask questions, and think about this personally too, because if you ask people questions, they start to think with their brain instead of you telling them, and then they start to formulate their own conclusion. It is a practice. I'm not there yet. It's a big journey for me. That is one thing that I've learned. If you ask more questions, the better off they're gonna start answering their own questions.
So a little bit more
answers in their own head.
A little bit more self-awareness, so they think it's their idea, right?
And they
So if
get
you've seen
focused on
something-
what's next too.
Right.
What's coming instead of what they're, you know, being so attached to what is.
Right.
The pain and pleasure thing.
Right.
Yep.
What's the next adventure? How fast do you want to get there, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, Alex, what are you seeing on pushback on pricing?
Same, scripts. Scripts are the things that kind of help them get past those, like she was saying, that's, you know. But, yeah, pricing, I mean, I agree with everything they're talking about. I think Kelly talking about taking them out and showing them properties if you need to. I agree with that. But one other thing I found recently, and I was kind of using this to my advantage, is in the Michael Lewis marketing suite thing that we have, there's a new tab on there that actually shows you like what the trend of the market is. Has anybody seen that?
Yeah.
It's like a new tab. And you can put in the zip code and it will show you like the average sales over the past 7 years and how the market's gone up like this. And then every single graph shows a market going like this and then it flattening out over the past like few months. So we usually have that conversation with people like, hey, the market's gone nothing but up over the past 7 years. Ever since I've been in real estate, it's gone up. So it's been a heyday for me. But now things are changing a little bit. So you know, embrace it. And I found that a lot of sellers that I've talked to recently, maybe it's just a streak of luck, but a lot of them have been like, yeah, we understand things are a little flatter.
Mhm.
You know, I think a lot of people are starting to hear that buzz.
Okay, good.
And
I
they're-
agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it's just me, but
No, I think you're right, definitely.
So you're not getting that much pushback if they.
I mean,
need
there's
to-
always pushback. I mean, every
Pushback.
circumstance is different, especially when you're dealing with like for sale by owners and stuff. You know,
Right,
that's like every day all we hear. But
right.
You know,
Well, because
just-
they don't wanna pay a commission.
yeah, but it's just one of those, you know, pre-qualification process where you're asking them all the questions, using all your scripts, and teeing them up for success. And if they don't fall into your bucket, you know, we might meet with 50 people and only take 10 that actually work. You know,
Mhm.
but that's the numbers game. You know, just shoot more baskets.
Right,
Like Michael
it's a
Jordan.
numbers game,
Right.
right,
You know?
right. Do you take every listing that you're offered?
Yes. And I'll take the ones you guys don't want.
I would say no for sure.
Yeah,
I don't anymore.
Yeah.
And I can give you a specific example Debbie and I had recently. We had a lady who was listed with somebody else, and she's in Drew Valley. She's a little ranch, and she's technically a 2-bedroom house, and she's listed now at $650. And we went through the whole process with her, and she still didn't want to do it. And so we're like, okay, fine, see you later. Because we're not wasting our time and money on something that's not gonna work.
Right.
And she's still sitting on the market. So, I mean, that doesn't happen, I think when you go through the whole process, usually most reasonable people will see it.
Right.
But you're always gonna have that one crazy person who's just not gonna see reality, and you're gonna just torture yourself trying to sell their house unless you're just gonna pick up buyers off of it, which is a strategy some people use.
Which is a strategy I use when I'm actually on the appointment.
Yes, and yes, I tell them that other people do
There
that.
are, yeah, that's a good script. There are many agents that are, I told you this last week, that are gonna buy your listing, and then you let them stew about that and wonder what that means. We'll take your listing, we'll put it at any price, because we're going to get buyers off your listing.
Kelly, do you circle back with them, or if it doesn't work out, you're just like, all right, taking you out of my database, moving on?
We keep an eye on them, like we'll look at the listing and we'll watch it.
Okay.
Sometimes some people it just takes time.
Right.
You know, and some people are just always crazy forever.
And totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
Totally
And
unrealistic.
maybe that means they're not motivated.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, maybe there's something they're not motivated about that you don't know about.
Right.
Not you, but I'm just saying you generally.
How
for
deeply
people.
do you go into those questions when you're initially talking to them? Asking the questions, because Tara said something about it's really important to ask questions, and I'm gonna go one step further. It's really important to listen to their answers. Don't be just formulating the next question. Listen to what they're telling you. That what they're telling you will lead you to your next question. Yeah, anyway, yeah.
You know, my coach said yesterday, she said, do you ask your sellers why they're selling? Why are you selling? Do you ask that specific question so that you know? Oh, whatever, we're gonna do this is this. Oh, okay. All right, and move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you really tap into the next question of like, well, what does that really mean for you and your family? And have them talk a little bit more, because you know, they're not gonna just tell you everything right then. And you gotta like dig on in there, you know, to really find out, and it may end up being a different meaning than they originally told you.
Very true.
That's really true with everything.
Oh,
Yes.
With everything,
we always
right.
tell people the nice answer. Everybody does. The truth is always 3 or 4 questions below that. And if you can get that real truth, then you have some ammunition to get them where they need to go, and to tell them what they need to hear when they need to lower the price, or they need to take an offer, or whatever they need to do.
MikeFerry.com.
Oh my God,
Everybody does
totally.
it. Yeah.
Totally, and Tom Ferry both, that's
Yeah,
his son.
their
They're-
scripts are
Yes,
awesome. And they're all
totally
free,
agree.
they're on the website, just go to the scripts tab and upload them. And they're all on there, all the questions that you need to ask are there.
So wait for a listing appointment or?
Yeah, like the pre-qualification call would be, you know, just before I come out, there's a couple of questions we need to ask, so we totally understand what your situation is, and we can best serve you. right? And you're asking, you know, where are you moving? How soon do you need to be there? You know, what price won't you go below? I mean, there's all these different prompting questions that really lead you to where you need to go. So, I mean, they're all free resources.
And it tees them up to sign the listing agreement when you get there. And you have them prepped to sign when you arrive.
Yeah, Sammy knows. He's good at the scripts.
Yeah, really important to get comfortable asking those questions, and if you feel you're being intrusive, you're not. Going 3, 4, 5 deep is gonna help you get that house sold. So
It also shows you care, actually.
Right,
It's
right.
the opposite of being intrusive.
Right.
You're interested.
Right, so it's really important to get comfortable with that. If you're not, role play with somebody to get comfortable asking those questions, cause the more answers you can get, then you're not blindsided by, I didn't know that 3 months into the listing.
Right.
You know, because when you dig deeper, all of a sudden, the real reason is going to come out. Reagan?
Hey Kelly, I have a really good friend, family member, friend that is almost as like a family member in North Carolina. He's gonna list his home and was talking about what agent is important, what type of agent is important to him. And he said, I really hate it when people come in and they say, well, what do you think it should be worth? And I know you said you make them answer that question, and his thing was like, they're the expert, I just want the truth. Like, I don't care what it is, I just wanna know.
So there's a way to do it.
Right.
There's a way to do it. And it's your tone of voice, it's more about not what you say, but how you say it. So we try to get it off the phone before we go, which is about 3 out of 4 times we can get it. And let me think, how do I say it? I say, you don't do it initially, you have to build that rapport and that conversation, and it's more like the last thing. Like on the phone, it's more like the last thing, oh, by the way, just curious, what do you think your house is worth? And they may say that, you know, some of them do, well, you're the expert, I wanna hear what you think. Okay, great, you know, well, I'll tell you when I get there if you have to do that. When we're in the consultation, we go through the comps and we ask them, so what do you think after seeing these comps, where do you feel like you fall into these comps? And that's not asking them what their houses should be priced at, you're asking them where they fall in the comps. And if they never give you a number, you're gonna know, cause they're gonna say, the house on Main Street was this, the house on Chalfont was this, whatever it is, and you're gonna kinda get a feel, and then you can go back to them and say, so what you're saying to me is you think, if they won't tell you, what you're saying to me is you think you should be priced between $420 and $450, is that what you're telling me? So there's a gentle way to do it. If they still push and say, well, I want you to tell me, say, I have a number, no matter what you say to me, it's not gonna change my mind because I want the house to sell. What I wanna know is if you're realistic or unrealistic, because then it helps me to be able to manage your expectations and to guide you better. So I think if you just come across like you're there to help them and you're not a salesperson playing a game, when that guy, it sounds to me like that he's had a salesperson, not, cause they are, you know, maybe they don't know what it should be priced at and so they're nervous. But if you come, it's all your tone of voice and that you care about them, and that I think also if you tell them you're not taking it, if it's too high, then there's a little bit of relief because they don't want sometimes you to take their listing even though you know it's too high and it's never gonna sell. Cause we hear that all the time, that they had an old agent and they just told them whatever they wanted to hear to get the listing. So
Right, hopefully yeah, that I helps. think that's you also think of it as self-preservation, and you, like Kelly said, it has to do with delivery. I will, like, go through the comps and kinda smile, like, did you have a number in mind? Like, you know, just to set the tone sweetly, not make it where I'm not gonna tell them what I think. But sometimes, if you let them speak first, and their number is higher than you would suggest, you still have a chance to have a meeting of the minds. But if you give them a very low number before you know what is in mind for them, then sometimes they will just completely shut the door on it. They're hurt, they're, you know, whatever. So I think of it not only
they won't listen to you from that
from
point
that,
on.
that's it, that's the end of the
Yeah,
conversation.
that's the problem with doing it first.
Yeah.
So,
So,
what were you gonna say?
I have a logistics question, real quick, and this is just kind of a formality, but do you send the comps before your listing presentation, or do you, like, so that they can see the interior photos, or do you put them like on your iPad and you can kinda go house by house?
It depends on the situation. Most of the time what we do is we put them on the computer and we go through them and with them. There has been situations where we sent them ahead of time, but it depends on, I would say 9 times out of 10, we do it in the consultation. So we just kinda got it.
That was my question.
say.
That was my question.
You
So
know-
do you actually do a CMA live right there in front of them, like?
Actually,
with the
Debbie
listeners?
does it, so you,
Oh,
right
so
here.
so you've already created the
Right.
CMA, you're just looking at the ones you've already selected, you're not logging into FMLS and literally looking.
Right. Actually, we are.
I'll let her answer.
Oh, really? So there's a way to save search, and so I name the client in my homepage so I can easily bring it up. But that way we can, on the fly, like this has happened to us where exterior wise and all that, we think the house is one way, but when we get in, it's totally different. Like say it was a gut renovation, much nicer than we anticipated, well then that skews my comps and I'm gonna look like a fool. So on the fly, we can bring up higher priced houses.
Gotcha.
Anybody else have a question?
If you're not 100% confident that you have the listing, do you still give them the price where you think you need to be at the end of the consultation?
If you're not 100%, what'd you say?
100% that you're gonna get the listing, they didn't sign.
It depends on the situation. We always say, and this is totally true, you guys, don't pick your agent because of the price they give you.
Right.
That's the wrong reason. That's what most people do, but that's not the reason to pick your agent. Pick your agent because they're professional, they know what they're doing, they care about you, they've got stats, they have a history, you've got personal stats where you show that you can sell houses, that your numbers are better than the average in that area. And we tell them that, and we have conversations around that, like the one that Dory said, there's a lot of those, and the way I say that is I usually say, and she knows this is nothing against her, but this is how I say it, is, when you get in real estate school, and then when you get hired by a brokerage, the brokers will teach you to take a listing no matter what, because when you get a listing, you get more business off of it. This is not indicative of Keller Williams, it's all companies. So we tell them that's what agents are taught, and we say, we don't do that. We don't do what everybody else does. We only take the listing if we know we can sell it and we feel like you're reasonable. You're gonna be a reasonable person to work with. So it's not all about them interviewing us. Part of it's kind of like we're interviewing them, so it turns the table a little bit too. And they're like, oh, man, I want what she doesn't want me as a client, and that works in a buyer consultation too.
During what part of the consultation do you tell them that? Like just right up front, or have you already gone through the marketing stuff, or when do you tell them that?
Debbie, can you?
Towards the end, 'cause you can't come out of the gate with that. You have to kind of build a rapport, do rapport, kind of get solidified, kind of show who we are and what we do, and what we're going to bring to the table, and show that this is going to be kind of a collaborative team approach.
So you do the presentation of who you are and your marketing approach, and you kind of paint the picture of the value you bring before you have a conversation about here's some pricing and everything you really need to
Absolutely,
hear.
that's the
Okay.
pricing's the absolute last thing we do.
Yeah, because if you talk about price and they'll agree with you, not to listen to anything you said. You've got to build your value and like why you're a great agent and why they need to hire you. And then, because the purpose of any consultation is to not only build rapport and get them to like you and feel comfortable with you, but to show that you're an expert and you know what you're doing. And when I was a brand new agent, the best way to do that is to go out and look at 20 houses before the listing appointment. Every possible house you can think of, because you have nothing else to do. You'll look at every single house. And then if you go to that listing
Even now, I feel like that's something I want to get back to doing, just to be familiar with the market. I think that's great advice.
There's nothing that gives you more confidence than when you go on that listing appointment and you can say, Debbie and I, we've been in all those houses.
Right.
Because we go do that.
Right.
And they're impressed when they know you've been in those houses that are competing with them, and then they trust you when you say that bedroom's really small or whatever the problem is with it.
Because they haven't been in the houses. So you're showing your value that way. And I'm with Kelly 100%. I will never tell anybody to take an overpriced listing just to get it. Yes, anybody in my coaching program, they know that I say that. You
none
wanna,
of us in here have ever done that.
no, I know. You want
no one
you
ever.
want to sell the house. And that has always been my listing approach also when I listed properties. I want to sell your house. You know, I don't, even though I do open houses and I will door knock and I'll do them well, my job is to sell that house as fast as possible with the least amount of stress for my client. Anybody else have any questions? Cheryl?
There was a great listing presentation at Family Reunion, and I think it was Ben Kinney, don't quote me on that, but he talked about his listing presentation of 5 actives, 5 pendings, and 5 comps. And we do something similar to that, but I cannot encourage you strongly enough to put the client in the car and show them these comparable properties. So many times our clients are like, oh, well, it looks like this. I'm like, yeah, we pay our photographers big bucks to make them look really great. And when you see it, and they're like, oh, and so you can see them like notching that number down and down, you know, adjusting it as it should be.
That's what you're getting paid to do. Andrew?
I remember a long time ago, Sean Rawls said this one thing during one of the masterminds. He said that, you know, when he would talk to the seller and they wanted to price it higher, he said, yeah, well, when we put your house on the market, the highest bidder is going to win it, and if you're the highest bidder, you get to keep it.
Yes. Would you pay that price for your house? Would you pay X number of dollars for your house? They're going to be like, no. Okay, then why are you asking somebody else to pay that?
I was just gonna I'm sitting on 3 overpriced listings right now, and 2 of them the Lord has told them to overprice them. I can't argue with it. But no, we sit around and pray about it. We ask the Lord to bring,
I would
Lord doesn't want you to move.
I would have a cheeky response to that. When did the Lord get their real estate license?
I'm nothing,
yeah, a little cheeky,
I'm
sorry.
nothing but polite. I don't push them, but I told them exactly
Oh, yeah.
what was going to happen. And you know, we've reduced the price to where it should be, still not selling. And they've said, Andrew, I would rather take less money from my house than to have thought that I could have got more money if you would have got me in a bidding war. But what I'm doing is I'm communicating with these people every other day with any update that I can get, and they are thrilled with me, even though they're hemorrhaging money right now. So.
Well, I wanted to mention the script earlier. I don't know if that's where you're going.
No, I didn't have a script for it. I'm just like.
What the carrying costs are.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to hold on to this house for 6 more months, that might cost you $20,000. Let's just do a $20,000 price reduction now.
Why do they want to sell?
You know?
Why do they want to sell?
Two of them have already bought other places. And I told them not to do that either. And the Lord told them that it was okay.
What? Okay. If the Lord told you that you need to price at this number, let's all pray real big that they come in the next 7 days. And if they don't, we'll take a price reduction.
I think my clients would think I was being sarcastic if I said that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with me. Like, people are like, "Why are you being an asshole?" They're like, "I like you."
Steph.
So what are your
What about if you just terminate and let someone else take
Yeah,
it
let us
over?
sit there, man. Just sit.
Because then you've lost marketing money. And
I know, I get it. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but it's killing your status. You got to remember that. If you don't ever sell it, I mean, you just look bad.
Yeah.
You're not able to say, I sell my houses at 99% because you keep taking these overpriced listings. Now you're selling at 92%.
So
And it does become
let's
about
talk-
you after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Just
talk
saying.
damage control. So a lot of us, like Andrew, I have one that's overpriced. That the market was different in December than it is now.
Right.
And it's a condo and it needs some updating, but we priced what he thought was accordingly, and we've since dropped it, and crickets.
So would you agree that the price you had in December is not the price that is in the marketplace in February, at the end of February?
Correct. And we dropped it to what is the market price, because there's another listing that's about to close that's at the price we're at now, and it needs more renovation.
Do you feel like you're at market value, or do you feel like you're under market value?
I think we're at market value.
Because you're playing catch up at this point.
Yeah.
You're
Too
following
late.
the market
You
down.
got to get ahead of it.
I don't know, this may not be popular advice. I'm gonna say it anyway, because I do it. Maybe.
Can we stay in culture before you start?
I don't know how it will be perceived. I have done this in the past and it's worked, but maybe you withdraw it and relist it at the right price.
There you go. That's what I was thinking. Can she just do something like slap on some paint or something and make it, take new photos, make something look a little newish?
Yeah.
You know, for $500 or something, relist it with new photos, change the photos around, do a little hocus pocus online and see if that helps.
Okay. I'd go down to 275. The market will make it go up to 285 if that's what it's worth.
Yeah.
Relist it.
Yeah, 'cause you're stuck in the same buyer.
Yeah, you're
fresh.
Yeah. What Andrew said is you're attracting the same buyers. When you get to 275, you'll attract 250 to 275.
Yeah.
You're attracting 275 to 3.
Gotcha. Okay.
Rachel.
Okay, so this is the perfect timing for this meeting for me. I'm so happy. Y'all gave me so many nuggets. I have an appointment on Saturday to meet with someone who's already met with 6 other agents.
Oh my word. Sorry. That was not culture.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's fine. But I really, I feel like we're pretty connected. It's, I feel like I have an advantage. So meeting with this guy who's already met with 6 other agents, and everyone. So in the conversation, he says, everyone who's seen my house says not to change a thing. Let's just price it based on condition. And I said, oh, okay. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Well, it still has the original kitchen and the original bathroom, but I figure, we'll price it this number, and it'll make up for it. And I'm like, have you met with the Keller Williams agent yet? He said, no, everybody's different brokerages. And I was like, okay, great. Because one thing that I'm going to be providing to you is data from a statistician who's going to be pulling market stats to show you how things are selling. So I will bring all that with me. So I'm preparing myself, and I know the number, and it's way too high. So thankfully, you guys have really helped me with this, and I'm so excited.
There you go.
But you know what,
my
can I say,
nuggets.
can I tell you what I hear?
Well, and it's also there's going to be other agents who want to buy your listing.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you
anything you want to hear.
Anything you want to hear
to get buyers off of your listing.
There's also another script. On a scale of 1 to 5, how honest do you want me to be with you?
Yeah.
Y'all ever use that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. No,
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
I like that one.
Yep.
So my concern for you with your resources is why is this person now interviewing a 7th agent?
Well, it's an interesting situation.
So that might be something you need to ask that person, because that makes you a little concerned that maybe you're not the right agent. Do you get it?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Rachel's up for a challenge.
Yeah.
No, I said that sarcastically.
Yeah.
I said that it was reverse psychology.
This is a Dave Ramsey lead. This is a Dave Ramsey lead. So he's meeting with 3 agents to sell, and he met with 3 agents to buy. But thus far, no one has known this zip code in town. So I do feel like I have an advantage there.
I'm sure you do, but to me, you have a great advantage. I'm your 7th agent.
I'm gonna close it.
I'm a little worried that you're not gonna be happy with anybody.
And that you're not getting the
Can we work
information
together as a
you
team?
need to get it sold. People are telling you what you want to hear. Sammy, what do you say?
I was just going to ask in regards to your price reductions. I mean, would you not say the time in which you ask for a reduction depends on the price point? Like if you're over,
Totally.
Yeah.
if you're between 5 and 900,000. I mean, you don't ask for a price reduction after 8 days, right? I mean, it's more
It's
like
longer
30
for a
days.
higher price listing, right?
Like 30 days, right?
8 probably.
30, 21, or 30? You have a number?
We don't go to 30 on any house. I mean, unless it's a bunch of holidays or weird stuff going on in there. Because, I mean, if you look at stats throughout the history, the history since I've been in business is really the days on market for a great house is always pretty consistent, not exactly over time in a buyer's market or a seller's market. So if you look at the Chuck Carr stats and you look at that price range or whatever your listing is in, that tells you the days on market. And even the higher price million stuff is still like 20 days or less, if I remember the numbers correctly.
If it's priced right.
If it's priced right, yeah. If it's priced right. So the minute you get the price right, it should sell. But you can't, it's not a black and white answer for that question for every client, because we have builders we work with.
Yeah, man.
And sometimes we'll price it too high and we'll go, okay, sure, we'll try it, because we want to keep that long-term relationship, and we know eventually they're going to lower it because they absolutely have to sell it.
Right.
Yeah. I stopped taking $1 million listings for like that reason, I mean, it's if you say it sells, within 30 days and it's priced correctly, even over $1 million, like like that.
I hold it to you.
I'm telling you.
It is more stressful. It is longer.
If it's priced incorrectly, I think the stat is almost
Like
a
a
year,
year.
280
Yeah.
days.
So why would you wanna take a year listing? Oh my God, I'd slit my throat.
No,
Yeah.
As long as I'll take is like 5 months.
Anybody else have any questions? This was great information. I hope you all appreciate it. Thank you so much for your
You have a pretty dress on, right? Is that early?
Okay, so I'll make her to look
What's the